estimate that. And it's on a state contract that we order with a whole bunch of other cities. Like there's probably 100+ cities on it, so you get a discount pricing on it. But with that, you whatever you order, you can take 20% less or 20% more. But if you short yourself, they won't bring you any more. So you'd have to get it from another city or work out a deal with another city to get it. So it's kind of a hard thing to do. We kind of go back and forth. We get other guys involved with it and say, how much should we get? And I always, before I hit that submit button, you're like, well, hopefully this works. But yeah, so the last couple of years we've been doing good with that. So
With that amount of salt, is that all stored at the Public Works?
it is.
Okay.
We have a salt shed there.
Okay.
We have our salt shed divided kind of in half. We order all just regular salt. If you guys have seen salt that's green or blue on the highways, that's a treated salt. You pay more money for that treated salt that's treated with different things. What we do to save some money is we order all regular salt, and then we order beet juice. And beet juice we will mix up kind of like 100 tons at a time. Salt only works down to 15 degrees. So below that, we have to use something that's treated so it activates or it works in the colder weather. So I think we save, $15 to $20 a ton by mixing it ourselves for that. And we kind of mix it as needed for that, so.
Okay.
I think they say 15 below, but when it gets so cold, I've heard 12 below and nothing works, but that's kind of what we go off of. So
Not
if it's
pickle
gonna,
juice, just beet juice?
no, it smells like molasses actually. If we have leftover treated salt and it sits all summer, it kind of all drains out or soaks to the bottom, but we can remix it up and use it again. So yeah.
When you take that full load in that you have to be allotted, do you have enough room in your salt shed for it? Or are you expanding out at all?
So with the salt, if we ordered, let's say we ordered 500 tons, we have a time frame when we can take that.
Oh, I
So we may only take 100 ton at a time, depending on where we're at. The last 2 years, we carried over about 400 ton. So our shed, and then you have, I think, a date. I think it's like July or something you have to take it by. And if you don't take it by then they charge you a storage fee for each week that you don't take it. So you have to have the room. We've jammed it in there before just so we don't get charged a fee for, a storage fee for them, holding on to it. So good.
Yep.
All right, street sweeping. Like I said, we are very diligent with our street sweeping. Randy and I go to classes at Watershed District, and they have grants and they have different things out there for people to hire like an additional sweeper or to have extra, people come out and help them sweep so they can get out more. We average about 6 to 8 times per year street sweeping, so we actually do a really good job with that. In the springtime, we try to get out as soon as we can once the snow is melted, and then get that spring sweep in, and then depends when the leaves bud sometimes, or if we have a storm come through, we might have to go out and do that again. The biggest thing with street sweeping is getting rid of what you collect. It basically has to go to a landfill. And I know I've mentioned this before, but we'll store our street sweepings at our shop. We have a bin. And then on rain days or days that are, bad weather, we actually haul our street sweepings to Mora. And it's a long trip, but we actually save about $1,000 a load by doing that. If we got rid of it at a place in Burnsville here, it's about $1,200 a load, and I think we pay about $260 to get rid of it there. So I don't really like to even talk about it out here because I don't want other people to do it. We're kind of lucky in it, but it's a really tough thing. Everyone has the same problem on where to get rid of this and the cost of getting rid of this stuff. So we're kind of lucky that we have that. Like I said, it's kind of a hassle, but it's actually good work for some rain days, and we can haul it up there, and it's worth the trip. So, parks. I said our park amenities continue to grow. So does the need for maintenance. We've added irrigation. In some of the parks, we've added around Housey Park, down at Casey Park, to try to make those areas look nicer, greener. With that, comes fertilizing, weed control, more mowing on that stuff. But we're trying to make a nicer appearance in there. Randy is an excellent grass grower. He loves green grass, and he does a great job with that. I don't know if you talk to Dan from the Vets Park. He loves Randy because Randy is on that grass out there, and But with that, does come a lot of extra maintenance and mowing and watering. But it looks really nice.
Congratulations on that. We get a lot of comments on the Vets Park, how nice it looks.
Yeah.
For the crew.
Yep. And all the bushes got ripped out last year, and we've been on. They picked out some new ones between Adea and Randy and Dan. They said we have to order them. I think we had a note about a week ago that we needed to order them, and I don't know if Gertens is still on winter break or whatever, but we're trying to get a hold of them so we can get the bushes in. New playground got installed at Polar Park. It got installed, I don't know, late December, middle of December. It was after we got all that snow, and they insisted on putting it in. I mean, it's fine. They got it in. Everything's good. We'll just have to get some wood chips in there. We got some of them in there, but it's all installed and ready to go, so we should be able to get it as soon as everything dries up, get some wood chips in there, and it'll be good to go. But, yeah, they were supposed to come early November, and then they pushed it out, and then they pushed it out, and they said, hey, we're going to come in 2 weeks. And I'm like, I don't know where you live, but we got like 1.5 feet of snow, and they're like, we'll dig it out and work through it. It's a little probably, I don't know if they do it again, but I think they just probably want to get their last playground in for the year, but it worked out. We got a Gaga ball pit that we're in the middle of assembling it's at Public Works. We're putting it together kind of right now on, bad days outside. And Casey Lake, the 2 ball fields got taken out in the back of Casey Lake last fall. And that got all hydro seeded, and grass was going really nice at the end of the year last year. We got a good jump on it. Again, Randy was growing some good grass down there, so we're hoping in the spring here we can get some fertilizer on it. Soccer nets are ordered. They should be here in next week or so. So that will be ready to go, and that was for the Parks Commission last year. That kind of stuff. So. Yeah. Any questions on park stuff right now? Okay. Water. We can talk about chlorine at the end if you'd like. Street and utility projects, whenever we have a street and utility project, it requires staff to, we operate all the valves that happen in a project area. So planned water shutdowns, if we turn something on, turn something off, and we do that so we know what's on, what's off. If there's a new water main put in, we know that it's not hooked up to our system without being tested. So when we do have these projects, there's a lot of work that goes into it on our side, working with the contractor to make sure that everyone knows that we know what's going on. Randy and I spend a lot of time, and so do our guys, operating those valves and working with the contractors when we have these big street utility projects. We're very involved with it, and it's so we can answer any questions to the residents or you guys of what's going on. In the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to need to start replacing all our residential water meters. I think we have about 4,800, 4,900 water meters. We're gonna have to do this, we put it in the CIP a couple of years ago for planning on this, but we're gonna have to go and just start in parts of the city. You know, I think we're just gonna take one side of the city and just kind of start doing that. When they all got replaced about 15 to 18 years ago, there was really kind of no rhyme or reason. We kind of went everywhere doing it. So we're just gonna have to start someplace and just go with it. The water meters that we use, it's a census water meter. There's a battery in them and there's a battery life in them. And it's about a 20-year battery life in those. There's commercial meters. There's also a battery in those. Those are about a 10-year life cycle on them. We have replaced, I'd say, a good portion of those already. And they kind of, 10 years in a day, they go out. I mean, it's almost like clockwork. All of them are pretty close, but that's something that we're gonna have to be working on. And I think, we'll run some numbers, but we'll probably have to look for a contractor to go out and replace these meters because it's a huge job. And getting in people's houses nowadays, it's not as easy as it used to. I mean, it wasn't really easy before, but nowadays, people really don't want you in their houses, but we'll have to come up with a plan and see how that goes. We test daily. We have water tests that we do daily. It used to be just fluoride. Now we test for chlorine daily. We're still on temporary chlorine right now. Hydrant flushing, that is something that we try to do each year, with the chlorine and stuff and the brown water. I was talking to the mayor and Dave before the meeting here, and with that, us having to chlorinate the time of the year, it was just a really bad time because winter was coming. It didn't give us an opportunity to go through and really flush the system, and we had a little bit of an opportunity to do it. But for brown water calls and dirty water, that is coming from the chlorine being in the pipes. Taking minerals off the pipes and just the chlorine mixing with the iron in the water. They say it discolors it. Flushing would help that, along. But in the middle of winter, it's really hard to go out and really do a thorough flush. So that's something we'll be looking at doing in the spring. Fire hydrant replacement, just the average cost of a fire hydrant replacement is about $15,000. We have, a lot of older ones in town. We have some money in the budget to try to pick away, at 4, 5, 6 of these each year, or ones that get broken. Lead service line inventory, that is something that is going to be a requirement that we keep doing this every year. We're gonna have to put out a notification every single year for this. That's something that's new that just came out this year. I confirmed that with Morgan and his people, because I was like, man, the last time we sent the letter out, people were really upset. They're like, why do I keep getting this letter? And the bad thing about it is it goes out to every residence, regardless if they've done their inventory or not. And I don't quite understand why, but it is a requirement, so.
Here it comes.
One very,
Does this mean you're on the clock?
no.
All right.
But it is important, and when I looked into it, I think I was surprised to find this out. The information that we get primarily from the state, from Minnesota Department of Health, has been good, but it's never really been comprehensive, and we've been dealing with this for the last couple of years. But this most recent information that we got that, okay, these letters that all cities put out, it's not just a one-time thing, it's an annual thing. And the question was, well, why do we have to send the same letter? The answer is because it's federal law. So when they passed the laws at the federal level that require the cities to inventory the water services and that sort of thing, part of that law is the annual notification. And I guess it makes sense, because if the title changes on a home, there might be somebody coming into town that didn't get the previous notification. So I guess from a public health and safety standpoint, I can understand why it's a requirement, but we did not know it was going to be an annual thing until just recently. So the answer is it's federal law. That's the real reason why we need to comply.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, so the last letter that went out, we do water line inspections on Mondays and Fridays. Normally, we don't schedule them for the winter because if snowstorms come in and we have a bunch scheduled, it's hard to, we need pretty much all hands on deck to plow. But this letter went out late in the year, and ever since it went out, we have been full on, so we've been doing these inspections on Mondays and Fridays, and there's been 10 to 12 a day since that letter has gone out. So we've been busy doing that each Monday and Friday. And I don't see any end in sight on that at the moment. We're getting towards spring, so it makes it a little easier. We had to one time, we did a couple of inspections right away in the morning. We had a couple water main breaks when it was really cold out, and we had to cancel like 6 of them for one Friday just because we didn't have the manpower to kind of handle everything. But we have been getting a lot of people signing up for that. And then with the lead service line inventory comes the lead service line replacement. We put in for a grant for that, and Morgan, you probably, I can't remember what we put in for, the number, but it will, these people that have lead service line, they are gonna be required to replace those, and there will be some type of program that we'll come up with for helping them replace them with this grant money, so.
Yeah, so we applied last year through the PFA program, which is part of the Drinking Water Revolving Fund, and the state does have dollars that are made available for lead and galvanized service line replacement. You wind up going into a pool of all applicants, which are, all cities statewide. Currently, we're ranked, I think, somewhere in the 200 to 300 range out of like about 1,200 placeholders in the overall list. And so we moved up from 2025 to 2026, but we're not in the fundable range yet. So we're hopeful maybe we'll get selected in 27 or 28. Those dollars aren't going to last forever, but they're still out there. We do have our hat in the ring, and I think the amount is $600,000, and that's based on what we have in terms of true inventory plus a little bit extra in case we find more between now and then, but that would cover the costs in some instances of not only replacing the water service from the main out to the curb stop, but potentially all the way from the curb stop to the home as well, especially if it's a lead service or a galvanized surface, right? So it depends. There's a little bit of investigation to figure out if we need to do both sides of the shutoff valve or not, but that is all going to be investigation or work that would come after we get the funding. We'd have to kind of develop a program and a bid package at that time. So maybe 27, I think, is what we can tell right now for that $600,000, but no guarantees.
Thanks, Morgan. And yeah, I just want to mention too, this mandatory letter that does come out, it does say on there in bold letters, if you have already replied to this or had this done, you can disregard this letter. I think we tried to modify this letter when it first went out, and the state only let us modify it so much. And I think we'll maybe get that maybe on the first line, lessons learned, so people can read that right away. But even though the letter will have to go out to everyone, if you do read it, if you have already done this, you can disregard. So the letter does say that. Like I said, we do our normal well maintenance. I think our wells normally once every about 7 to 8 years, the well gets pulled. The pump and everything gets, they can retool it, regrind it, and then they get reinstalled back in. The electric motors, you get rewound. That's something that, like I said, we have those off years from each other to replace those or to rebuild those. We've upgraded with the electric department, new VFDs motors or VFD startups for the motors in there. And what these VFDs do, I'm not an expert on this, Brian could probably speak more of it, but basically you can run your motors at a lower speed and use less electricity. And that's kind of the gist of it, right, Brian?
you don't have the big inrush, those big motors, when they start up and they ramp up to 100%. It controls the speed of them, so it saves energy, yes.
And a soft start, it's supposed to be easier on your motor. So we were able to install those and get some, I don't know if it's grant dollars or
Part of the rebate.
part of the
program that
rebate
we have.
program from the
Money-
electric
Money
department.
that has to be spent from the electric department is paying for it, so it works out great for both parties.
Yep, and then, like I said, rebuilding manholes. We could rebuild hundreds and hundreds of manholes every year. There's lots of brick ones out there. We do some, there's some companies that can come out and do some poured-in-place concrete for some of the brick ones that are falling in. We do minimal work on some of these when we do these, our maintenance overlays or our pavement management, but we can't get, I mean, if there's something that's really bad, we're gonna replace it in that pavement management, but we try to keep that, you know, in tune, or in the scope of work and not doing a full reconstruct. Said gate valve turning is another thing that go to operate all of our gate valves. It's good and it's bad. It's good that we can get out there and turn these and make sure they work, but when we get out there, there's lots of really, really old ones, and sometimes you touch them and they start leaking, and then you have to do something with them. But, and then water main breaks, yearly average, you know, we have about 4 to 6 water main breaks a year. It's down a little bit. I don't want to jinx ourselves on that, but yeah, they seem to come in spurts.
We've had done.
Yeah, we would. Yeah, so yeah, that's water. Chlorine. I'll just give you a quick update on chlorine. Like I said, we're still chlorinating right now. It's something we'll have to, you know, we're going to talk with Brian and kind of come up with what we think, you know, the Minnesota Department of Health really wants us to stay on it permanently. We are getting numbers together. We're working with Morgan to just get an idea of what it would cost to permanently do what we're doing. Right now, the temporary stuff we have set up, it's just a tank of chlorine, a pump. It's the chlorine's in the same room as the fluoride. Technically, you can't have that. You can in our situation, but you need a separate room. There's gas chlorine. There's all these different options. So we're going to get all this information together, and then I think talking with Brian, we'll figure out how we want to approach this, what we want to do. We'll get all the facts together, and then come up with a plan. But for right now, we're just, you know, temporarily doing it. We have it in 3 wells that we're putting it in. So that's kind of where we're at right now. You know, the calls that we're getting right now, people smell chlorine or brown water or dirty water. And like I mentioned earlier, that kind of comes from the chlorine mixing, or the chlorine attaching to the iron. It discolors the water, and just the sediment that's on the pipe that can cause some dirty water. We've gone into people's houses, flushed their main. I think a lot of it comes from their service line coming in. And we've offered, you know, gone in for the people, and we flushed their main line for them. We just basically pull out their meter, hook a hose up, run that water for a while, and we can usually get it to clear up. That's not to say that it might not come back, because, you know, some can be coming out of our lines, but the water is perfectly safe. It meets, I mean, all of our testing is good. We work very closely with the Minnesota Department of Health, so everything is good right now. So more to come on that. So any questions on that? Okay. How long? What is it? When do we start again? Third week in January. Yeah, as I say, I thought it was about a month, so. Yeah, and, you know, when we failed our test, when we went off it last time, it was, I think, 4 days. He tested, they failed. We turned it on, the chlorine back on. It was on for 3-4 days, and then we got good tests again. So I said, more to come. We can probably have another discussion with all you guys to kind of come up with a plan for the future here, so. Sanitary sewer, we currently maintain 46.84 miles. I don't know if that's 0.84, that's getting down to, I should change that to around 47. Yeah, so for 47 miles of sanitary sewer, 4 lift stations. Lift stations are just lower areas in town that a bunch of, houses pump into an area, and then we pump it up from there and pump it into our main line. So our whole system is gravity fed. There's a meter that's on the west side of town, heading out of town, that goes down to Met Council, and that meter, meters all the sewage that goes out of town, and that's how we get charged for the sewage in town. The past couple of years, we upgraded our SCADA system to help monitor our lift station wells, and newer technologies can make things run more efficiently, cut down electric costs, and monitor the system better. The SCADA people that we have working for us are really great, and they've really helped us. We can see a lot of stuff on our SCADA system. Randy monitors that really closely too, what tower levels, but we at low tower levels, lift station alarms. There's pretty much alarm for anything, temp, in a well, all these different things. So it really helps us in our daily, just monitoring our system. We can see trends. We can see if a lift station ran longer on one pump than the other. So we can do a lot of troubleshooting with that. The last couple of years, so there's an I&I grant that we get from Met Council. We've received it the last few years. In 2025, it was $36,000 grant, and then in 2026, we have a $42,000. That's basically infiltration into your sewer line. So your main sewer line going into your house, you can replace it, and you can get paid up to half, up to $5,000 through this grant. So Met Council puts these grants out there because any water that gets into the sewer system, any rainwater or any groundwater or anything like that, we get charged for basically getting rid of it because it goes through that outgoing meter. So working with contractors and the homeowners on this usually gets used up fairly quick. I know that there's people have been inquiring about this for, already for this year. I think there's some people on the hook already for it. So it's a really good program. So people that have some broken down sewers can, help get payment through that. During the summer, we basically have two employees that are out cleaning our sewers for most of the summer months. What we do is we clean 1/3 of the city each year. So every year or every 3 years, we have gone through our whole sewer cleaning system. We have to keep track of each day where they are, what they cleaned, because if there's any sewer backups that somebody has that are in the League of Minnesota Cities, asks us for all that information. What we use, was it sunny, all these different questions that they have, but it just helps protect the city by us going through and doing that. The hard part about it is you can go through an area, clean it, it can be perfectly clean, and it's amazing what people flush down the toilet and what we find in the sewers. So there's lots of things that we find down there that we're like, man, we just cleaned that. There's some areas in town that, that are, we call them hot spots we've had problems before, so we clean those, in the spring, in the middle of summer, and then usually in the fall, just to make sure that we keep them clean. So like high grease areas from certain areas that we've noticed over the years. Over the past 3 years, we've had HydroClean in. They've been cleaning and televising our system. And what's really good with this is they come in, they clean, and they televise everything they clean. And I think this year will be the final year. This is the 4th year they'll be in, and they'll have everything televised in the whole town. And what's nice with that, with our Datify maps, with all of our sewers and everything on it, WSB works with us, and they can connect all the videos to the sewer lines. So we can click on them, look at a video. Now the video is only as good as for that day. Like I said, anything you put down there. But we also get a nice PDF, and it shows like service lines that are connected, abandoned ones, year service lines. So we have footages, so it helps us with locating, stuff like that, which is really, really good. like over the past 5 years, our mapping has improved greatly. It takes some money, but it's been great. And using this Datify from WSB for this mapping, it really makes it, for us out in the field, it gives us a ton of information at our fingertips. As-built from when stuff was put in, any as-built that we have are all connected to these things. So in an iPad out in the field, we can find out a lot of information. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we don't have information on. It's just, we just didn't have the info. Storm sewer, aging infrastructure and damage from road salt requires rebuilding more catch basins than we can get to in the summer. New construction, always also creates maintenance, stormwater ponds that are required to be put in place and capture stormwater. Each time we do a project like the one we're doing now, we have to upsize the pond, we had to upsize the pipes. And then a lot of the rain gardens or the ponds that you put in require a bunch of maintenance afterwards for the plants that get put in. So it just kind of keeps adding to the work, each year that we have to upgrade one of these things, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but some of this stuff with the storm sewer and having to, like you said, increase the size of the ponds and things like that, that's directed by the Minnesota Watershed District, right?
Yes, yep.
I mean,
And-
it's not necessarily our call. It's,
Nope,
these are
and-
requirements that come down.
Morgan, you don't have to come up, well, if you want to. I know each year we talk about our road projects, the storm sewer part of it keeps increasing higher and higher because they require more, and Morgan can speak way more intelligently about it than I can.
It all goes back to the Clean Water Act of 1974, another federal law. No, so you're exactly right. The Ramsey-Washington Metro Watershed District, which is most of our town except for Silver Lake, that little corner of town is the Valley Branch Watershed District. But those regulatory agencies do have rules that cities need to abide by. Mostly the impact for cities is when we do a street project or if we do a rehab project within a park, if we're adding impervious surfaces, we may trip triggers in these rules that the watershed districts hold that require us to do stormwater management. So that could be retention, that could be treatment of runoff before it goes, beyond our streets. Once it goes into wetlands and streams and rivers, we want it to be as clean as it can be. It's never perfectly clean necessarily coming off of the roads. But that's why we have these underground BMPs or, these treatment devices that might be a chamber or a very fancy manhole underground. There's one underneath the parking lot in the yard of the Public Works building. We've got other ones in different areas. Sometimes they're above ground, like a rain garden or a small pond or that sort of thing. But those are call it mandated by a outside regulatory agency in the watershed district, but it is kind of all coming down from a cascade of environmental regulations that did start at the federal level in the 70s, and the watershed district's job is to enforce that, and not just for cities, but also if you're a developer or a builder. Usually single-family homes are exempt, but if you do a multifamily project or a commercial site like Taco Bell, for example, you might have to do some stormwater management, and that is all required by the watershed district. So
Okay.
we do have adjacent rules in our codes, in our zoning code, in our city rules, but they align with the watershed district, so it's fair to say that it's required by them.
Okay.
So when it comes 17th and Delaware, that project, they had to have a holding pond for water in the back, correct? Because it
Correct.
was
To
a
get their
little
permit with the watershed district, yeah, they have a little bit of a depression in the back that provides some treatment before it overflows into some storm sewer and gets out into the street network. So that's pretty typical. Taco Bell is another one. They have a small pond on the east side of the building there before it flows into the county ditch on McKnight. So not uncommon. Everybody's kind of in the same boat. Different watershed districts have slightly different rules, but they're all kind of pointing in the same direction, so.
And when you say Silver Lake Valley, it goes all the way, so Silver Lake goes all the way down to the St. Croix River then?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. So Silver Lake is at one of the very head ends of that watershed. And I think it does get to St. Croix through like Grant and
Yeah.
those communities.
Goes to those other lakes. It was kind of interesting. I didn't realize that was the start of the St. Croix Valley one, but I
Yeah,
heard that too
and
before.
Ramsey-
Goes to Demontreville, works its way through the lakes down to the St. Croix.
Correct. And then Ramsey comes up through North St. Paul from the southeast to the northwest and kind of exits in the vicinity of Casey, and then eventually winds up in Coleman Creek and then Coleman Lake.
If you could get us maps of that when you have a chance, that would actually be interesting.
Yeah, we can get lots of maps that show all of the different watersheds and sub-watersheds. Yeah, so that's something that we
A
can
lot
share.
of rivers below the city that you don't even know they're there.
Yeah, and I think we have some information on our website, just general public educational information. So I can look into that and forward that.
Quite interesting. I didn't realize how much action there was underneath the city when it comes to waterways and rivers and, flowing to different areas.
It's definitely, there was a lot of fill brought into the community of North St. Paul when I think there was a lot of development going on post-World War II, and that was before some of these rules and regulations existed. But yeah, so there's not only do we have to deal with runoff, but also some high groundwater, and there's always flooding issues. So these are all things that the watershed districts help with as well, too.
So they're kind of bringing them back, because in the 70s, they paved over everything because there was no water. Now they're trying to bring back so we can have the natural running to the grounds underneath it.
Sometimes that's the best solution, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Morgan. No, don't. So moving on, unless there's any more questions on storm stuff, student-built house. Last year we finished up student-built house with 916 in that program. This year we started with the St. Paul College with that house that's up on the corner of 3rd, or it's a twin home up on the corner of 3rd and 7th Avenue. That right now, they still have probably a week or so of setting trusses and getting the house, getting the roof sheeted. We got an update kind of from the teacher today. He was hoping by the end of March that they'll have it be ready for sheetrock. With that, we're thawing out the basement right now so they can get the plumbing in underground and then get that paved so they can get walls framed down there so they can get utilities in. Most of the subcontractors are lined up right now to go inside, but we'll see here, weather dependent, that hopefully, by the end of March, they'll be sheetrocking in there and ready to go. But yeah, with that, there's a lot of coordinating with that, building that house, and so far so good with St. Paul College, and working with them. So they haven't had the greatest weather to work in, but
And it's really two houses, too. We haven't done that before. So
no, we
it's-
haven't. This
so,
is the
yeah,
first
this
time
is
doing.
a big project.
Yep, first time doing a twin home like that. So forestry. Last year, 2025, there's 200 ash trees removed, which was a really good year. 125 new trees planted with the grant money, and then another 75 trees that were planted just with our regular budget. This is our last full year of that grant that we received, that relief grant. And that was $400,000. $300,000 was for our public ash tree removal, and $100,000 for the low-income private ash removal. The $100,000 was used up in the first year that we offered that. And that removed, there was 38 applicants and 81 private ash trees were removed with that grant. We found out later that they said we didn't have to replace those trees that were removed in those yards, and we actually ended up having to replace them, but it wasn't in their yards. Most of the people didn't want them, so we had to replace the trees actually throughout town. We found that out kind of after the fact, which was fine. There's $72,000 remaining left in the grant. We have about 150 ash trees left to remove. So we're in pretty good shape. 80 of those trees are being treated right now. Most of those are downtown and then in the parks. And what the goal is not to keep treating these for the rest of their lives. It's to kind of just systematically remove them as budgets allow for it. So the plan is to Josh is working right now on using the rest of this grant money up. He's got 35 trees marked out right now for contractors to bid on. And then with the removal of 35 trees and planting 75 new trees, that'll be close to using up the rest of that grant money. Everything goes good with that. With all these new trees being planted, there's maintenance that comes along with those, keeping them watered. Josh was talking to me last week about this. They come out and do inspections there for this grant. They're very, very thorough on their inspections. Deer eat some of the trees or rub against the trees, and they will say that they're not going to pay for that tree now, or we have to replace it on our own money, or if something was damaged. But all kinds of little, nuances with it, where he's like, man, they're pretty, particular about what they do. They really do follow up with this grant, and Josh has done a great job, with that. So, we're going to be in pretty good shape, I think, by the end of this year, next year, with having all the ash trees removed in town. So hopefully some other disease doesn't come up with another tree. When all the ash trees get removed and new trees planted, we'll have more trees in town than when we started with the whole program. So again, Josh has done a really great job with the inventory of this and working with this. So. So right now we got our new bucket truck last year. We kept our old bucket truck. We're going to put that out on auction. We got I think we got a trade-in price for it. Most of the time we get a trade-in price, and then we'll keep that price, and then we'll put it out on auction and see what we get, and whichever is higher. Normally we do a lot better on the auction, but we kept the other truck, so we have 2 crews out now working on trees, which makes it really nice. We can do some roadside trimming and then ash tree removals at this time of the year when, we have some extra people around. So, that's a good thing. Thanks for reminding me. Building maintenance, just talking, our buildings, overseeing the maintenance that is performed by the city buildings, working with contractors to make sure they have what they need to complete the job, troubleshooting problems to determine if they can be completed in-house. With stuff going on with the new key fobs and stuff in town, new door frames, there's lots of work going on with that. Working with the contractor for the HVAC system. We're looking at replacing the HVAC on City Hall this year. There's a lot of work that goes into that, working with the contractors on that. So I'm doing time here. Mechanic shop, there's one mechanic. We have 205 pieces of equipment that require routine maintenance. Mechanic comes in during snow events in case we have breakdowns. He's ready to go and help the guys get their truck back up and running. Upgraded fleet maintenance software with the object to be able to track many different categories: fuel costs, maintenance costs of these vehicles. Our mechanic, he's does a great job. He has some days that are good and some days that there's stuff piled up, but he does a good job. And there's a lot of equipment out there, especially in the summertime, that goes out, and especially with some kids that haven't run some of the stuff. It gets challenging some days, but we do a good job. So just some things that are on the radar. New water tower that we talked about, that's out a ways. Upgrading mapping for our future records. Ensure correct city building maintenance is being done in a timely manner. I brought up the water meter replacement, lead service line identification and replacement. That's kind of all I have. This is just kind of a list that we have of all the different things that we do. But one thing I just want to put a shout out to our guys that work in public works. In the winter time, we kind of them guys all have to pay attention to the weather. They all do a really nice job. If they have a family vacation coming up, or they come and, you know, kind of bring it to our attention, like, hey, I got this going, it looks like the weather's gonna be okay. Between water main breaks and snow, we, you know, try to make a plan. Randy and I try to make a plan with the guys before we leave for the day, so them guys can go home and kind of know what the deal is. Sometimes that might have to change depending on what happens. But we send a group text out to our guys, and it's in a 1 minute, all of them respond back, hey, you know, yep, I'll be in, you know. So it's really good for us to have these guys that pay attention to this, you know, because we kind of, you know, they're kind of on a short leash in the wintertime. And we do what we can to give guys days off for sure, but everyone is we have never had a problem getting someone in for an emergency. Guys are always willing to come in and work extra and do, you know, whatever. These water main breaks seem to happen on the coldest days. Of course, this year it was the case, but like I said, without those guys, you know, and us doing what, you know, it really, you know, means a lot to us that they pay attention the way they do. We you know, we try to be very flexible with them in the summertime and giving them time off, because, you know, in the wintertime, we can get by without a guy or two, but we kind of need all hands on deck. But, yeah, so I'll leave it open to any questions you have for me, or
How many,
concerns, or
how many people are in Public Works?
there's 10 total.
Okay,
10
including
full-time
yourself and
people.
Randy, and then Josh is a consultant,
No,
right? Or-
Josh is our city forester, but
he's
he's a
fu-
he's a
okay.
public works guy. So
Okay.
he does a lot of tree work, a good amount of it. But he also, when he goes on call, he's not out doing tree work.
okay.
We have a guy that's on, the guys rotate on call. So there's a guy on call, you know, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and they rotate. There's 10 guys, so once every 10 weeks they rotate. But for that week, any after-hours calls, anything that goes on, them guys are, you know, on the hook on it. Randy and I pay attention to all that stuff. We work very closely with those guys. You know, we're a team. I always say it's not your problem, it's our problem, whatever that is. And, you know, it takes all of us to make this whole thing work. And like I said, we have a decent group of guys that are very responsible, you know, with all the different things. You know, I told Randy when we started making the schedules out, use a pencil and here's a big eraser, because what we write down in the morning, or what gets written down in the morning, gets changed a lot before we head out the door, just with a weather thing, someone hitting a fire hydrant, whatever it might be. But
And then there's also, during the summer, we get, we get temporary help, right? too?
we do. We have summer help, and that varies. Last year was probably the most we had for a while. I think we had about 8 people last year. We had 2 retired gentlemen last year. That was really nice. They were the mowing guys, so they kind of took care of the mowing, and, you know, it was nice. They could just come in, do their thing. You know, and then the last couple of years, we've actually had a good group of summer help. There's, you know, a handful of them that are returning, which is always really nice for that. But normally, I'd say between 5 and 7 people is what we hire for summer help. You know, blacktopping crew, that's a minimum of 5 people like we have out for that. So a full-time person, and then, you know, the 4 summer help, or, you know, depending what it is. So.
Okay.
For clarity, you would ask how many people, it's 10 public works workers, not including
Oh, not
Ron
in-
and
okay.
Randy.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
10 workers, and then Randy and myself.
Okay.
We talked about the city hall. I know with the community center, we had a roof leak, we had to cover bookshelves and things like that. The last warm, how do we do this time when we had the thaw? Any news?
I did not get a call this last thaw. I thought for sure I would, but I think it depends if there's a certain rain coming from a certain way, or I'm not really sure. But that is it is an ongoing problem in the library, and there's really nothing that can be done at this point. You know, we can offer to move books for them or cover they usually cover them up with plastic, but, you know, it's at the point now where it's the roofer and, I basically, a general contractor need to come in there, tear it apart and figure out what's going on. We've patched it multiple times. We've gone and gone and tried to do our own repair up there. But
I just wanted to see if this last one we did, and I appreciate the staff, you know, helping them and covering the shelves when they, you know, if there is an issue, getting up
Yep.
there when you call, so.
they have our number and we always respond and, you know, and do what we can. But like I said, yeah, it's, yep.
Anybody else, anybody?
I'd like to add to that. Hats off to Public Works. I mean, those guys do such a great job. They're on top of the things that come in, whether or not it's the water break or the plowing, and Ron and Randy do a wonderful job staying on top of all that. I mean, anything odd job that comes in, congratulations, you guys get it. I mean, they just pulled in the cannon from the Historical Center because it needs to be refurbished, so that goes on to Public Works. You just can't compliment them enough for the work and job that they do. They wear lots of hats.
Well, just like, you know, bringing that stuff tomorrow. I mean, it'd be easy button is to just go down to Burnsville, but you understand, you know, the budgeting and where we are, and you're willing to say, hey, it's a rainy day, we got time, let's take care of it, so.
Yep. And
Really appreciate it.
Randy puts a lot of effort into, like I said, selling our vehicles. Like I said, the easiest thing to do is we just go here, give us a trade price, bring us a new one, pick up the old one. Like I said, we've done very well with putting them out on auction. We've auctioned them, taken them off the site, reposted them. Figured we might be able to get a little more, and we've always got a lot more money for that. You know, for those pieces of equipment. You know, the stuff is so expensive to purchase. You know, so those type of things, if, you know, we can do something like that, we definitely put an effort in and, you know, for it, so.
Well, with the officers and that cleaning the streets, has it been easier to plow this year?
You know what, it has, it's,
With the trucks not on there
yep,
and all that?
it has been, the guys have commented on it, and when there has been some areas, the police have done a good job this year with that.
Great.
Yep.
And I'll just say, you know, on behalf of, you know, I know specifically the Arts and Culture Commission, we've got the art cart that you guys haul around for us and place out in places. So on top of everything else you do, you help take care of everybody else, so appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Keep up the good work, and thanks for everything you guys do.
On behalf of Parks and Rec, we'd like to see the grass a little bit greener, though.
Can you get on that, Randy?
Well, so we got a kind of double-edged sword. The watershed doesn't want us to put any fertilizer on the grass.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why he's out there at night with a little bag going like that, huh?
You think you can watch the deer and stand by the young trees then?
All right, well, thank you.
Yep, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. All right. Looks like we can call for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved. Councilmember Woods.
Second.
Second, Councilmember McKenzie. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are at 6:22. We'll be back at 6:30. Thank you, everyone.